The Nuggets will head to Las Vegas for Summer League. We'll give you the rundown on exactly what we want to see from Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett, Holmes, and the rest. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll get into Team USA versus Canada, all that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and being with us. Appreciate you guys being part of the community, checking us out, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, where we do appreciate those 5-star reviews, Spotify, or if you're finding us on youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Join the thousands, literally thousands of subscribers over at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Hit that smash button, smash that like button, and let us know what you want to see from the Nuggets in Summer League in the comments. Today's show is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, we'll get into everything today with you, the everydayers that are here with us Monday through Friday. We're going to talk about Summer League priorities. We'll get into Julian Strawther and Holmes, and we're going to talk Jalen Pickett and Hunter Tyson. And I guess Trey Alexander is a thing now, and we'll talk about that. Plus, we'll also get into some thoughts on Team USA versus Canada. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Adam Mares, director of content for DNVR. This is World's Finest. Adam, hope your Wednesday was great, my man. I want to ask you this question first off. Who is the player that needs to show the most for the Nuggets in Summer League?
Man, that's an interesting question, because I think when you say like relative to their own expectations, it's probably Jalen Pickett. When you say like as the overarching for the Denver Nuggets, it's probably Julian Strawther. So I don't know which way you would want to take that, but those two guys to me answer the question depending on what angle you're looking at it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. I think for me, I'm like split between Holmes and a galaxy brain take on Holmes and a more subtle take on Jalen Pickett.
I think if Pickett has a bad Summer League, like I think it might be over for him, like that. This is probably his last good chance to play, because I don't know that he's going to get a good chance in the regular season.
Right.
It's almost like Jalen Pickett is playing for the opportunity for when inevitably one of the point guards needs rest or is out or is injured or whatever, will he be the guy called up or not? And I feel like that's what he's called. I almost have given up on the idea that he might be the backup point guard. I just think that's too tough to ask of a guy who literally has not played yet.
Yeah, I agree. So that's kind of the thing here, though, is, okay, so if Jamal has an injury and he's out, and then if Russ slides into that, then who's the backup point guard?
Again, this Russ thing,
if Russ joins,
I know we're all just assuming it. Where I'm sitting here going,
yeah, and that's the question. Is like, what if somebody like is just like, hey, we'll take Russ, sure, like we'll do it,
yeah,
yeah, and it have to be a team that he'd be willing to play for. But like, here's a good example of a desperation team. What if the Miami Heat are willing to take on the contract?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Right?
They probably won't. I don't know if he's a Miami guy, but maybe. I guess they took on Butler.
And so if that doesn't happen, or if that happens, then the Nuggets do not have another point guard. Now they could, maybe trade for Micic, but in general, like I just kind of look at this and go, that's why I kind of lean towards Pickett as just like, hey, he needs to be able to show that you can have a little bit of momentum going into camp, just like a little bit of momentum of like, hey, he had a really good, didn't play a lot last year, had a really good Summer League, did the stuff he was supposed to, opportunity to kind of take off in camp. Right? Because these things can change very quickly. Like careers can alter very quickly when you have zero sample size to go off of. So establishing more sample size can maybe help. The alternative here is Holmes, and the idea, honestly, that I've to get galaxy brain on it is like, okay, if Holmes pops and is really great, what does that mean for next summer when AG is up?
Yeah, that's so much though. That less is about Summer League though, and is more about the season, right? And that's why I think this is like, if we're just talking Summer League, who has the most? Strawther. I think Strawther plays such a big role in the roster next year. No matter what, he could have a terrible Summer League, he still plays a big role. But if he comes out and does certain things, and I'll tell you what those things are for me, Matt. one, it's shot making. You want to see him make shots. Like, he's a shooter, and you want to see him go out there and make a lot. The way Hunter Tyson did last summer league, you want to see games where you're like, oh yeah, this guy has, microwave potential. Guy that makes 2 in a row, 3 in a row, and you're like, okay, that's what Denver needs. They need a guy who is a threat to make shots, at volume. I think ball handling, and an interesting thing today at practice, Matt, I thought very interesting. Maybe the single most interesting thing that Michael Malone said today at his practice was that he views Julian Strawther as having some point guard skills, that not only does he handle the ball well, but he might be a guy that, hey, could we run a lineup where he's the point guard, in some staggered configurations? That's a possibility. So he thinks that Julian Strawther's handle is one of the best on the team and might be a guy that can be counted on to do that. I don't know if I agree, but maybe that hints at something that they're going to show at Summer League, or try out at Summer League, of, hey, let's put the ball in his hands and just see how well does he handle that responsibility. I think that's interesting.
I'm about to pull up my favorite example of how to use Summer League here. And it's Desmond Bane, because Bane was a pure shooter his first season. And it was like, oh, hey, like he can defend a little bit, and he's an absolutely elite top level shooter. And the Grizzlies sent him to Summer League after his rookie season, when he was already like too good for Summer League, because they were like, we just want you to learn how to play with the ball in your hands. Like, that's all we want you to do, is just work on making reads. Don't need to score. Don't need to do don't worry about your defense. Work on playmaking and understanding how to set the offense. It's not so you can do it. It's so that you're going to see what Josh sees, and you're going to be able to play off of that more effectively.
Right.
And so like that combination, I think is actually pretty good. And I think that Julian actually has, I see a little bit of that with Julian. I think I see a little bit of those skills in him. I think there's maybe a little bit of a higher upside. Like, he had some moments early in the season last year where it was like, okay, hey, like Julian Strawther might be a guy. And then like that tailed off pretty quickly, and then he got hurt. By the way, it's just really funny. You just reminded me of like how out of Summer League, we were like, well, Hunter Tyson's in the rotation, but or like Hunter Tyson's got the leg up in camp at least.
Right.
And
how
how
mean anything, kind of shows you.
And how quickly that can change. But yeah, like for me, I think with Strawther, it actually is those kind of things. I think it's understanding how to run sets. I love the fact that Malone was like is taking an active role in Summer League. I think that that's like a very good sign in terms of his buy-in and how much he's like, I have to be involved all the way through. I can't just handle top level stuff and just everything else will figure it out. I actually think Malone's better when he micromanages a little bit. And so I guess let me rephrase that. I think Malone's good when he micromanages things that are not the starters. How about that? Because it needs more structure, right? And so helping to kind of guide that second unit. If the Nuggets are going to do the development thing, you need your coach to be really kind of on board to do that. So for me, I do think that having Strawther work on that, I'm less worried about Strawther's defense. That's, I think, a long-term goal and something that's just going to have to come with reps. And he may never get there, but I think as a shooter, for sure, you want to see him look comfortable with his shot. It would be great if it was like the first 2 games of Summer League, you were like, oh yeah, he can't be here. Like, he's too good. Like, he is a level above. That would be a really good sign. It's unlikely given that he's going to be playing this different role, but it would be a very good sign for the Nuggets if that happens.
Yeah, I wonder about that. Like, how many games does he play? Does he just play all of them? Is it just like, yeah, he's the regular, he's full in on all of them? Does he play 1 or 2 and then they shut him down and give other guys? I don't know. That's an interesting question, to be honest.
Up next, we'll get into Jalen Pickett. We'll talk about Hunter Tyson. We'll get into Holmes and the rest of the Nuggets, as well as Trey Alexander, who impressed Michael Malone at practice today. We'll talk about that, plus more thoughts on Summer League. Up next on Locked On Nuggets. Number 1 ticketing app for you this summer has got to be GameTime. It's the best way for you to be able to catch games. There are very few things better in town than going to Rockies games. It's a great experience. Like, even with the team, it's a great experience. The Rockies games are genuinely, like, anyone that comes to Denver in the summer and they're like, what should I do in Denver? I'm like, well, there's a lot of really great options. Like, there's actually a lot of really great stuff to do in Denver before we even get into the hiking and stuff like that. But genuinely, if you get a chance to go see a Rockies game and hit the rooftop, like, it's just a really cool experience. There's nothing really like it. And you get those tickets on GameTime. I'm going to a minor league baseball game at the end of the month. I'm going to North Carolina for a week. And on the way out, we're stopping by Durham because I have an absolute rabid obsession with Bull Durham. It's, to me, the best baseball movie of all time. And I love going to Durham Bulls games. I got tickets for it on GameTime. I got great seats for Durham Bulls. I'm gonna be able to see the bat dog running up and down, get the bats. It's gonna be absolutely amazing. I did that on GameTime. You're gonna save more. You can choose a section with the zone deals, and GameTime will choose the seats. You save money that way. They've got all in pricing. You just toggle that on. You can see all the prices there for you. You also get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us, being in every day or checking us out Monday through Friday. Swipe with you tomorrow and then swipe and gripe on Friday. All right. So, Adam, we talked about Julian Strawther in that first segment. Do you want to go to Jalen Pickett? Do you want to hit Hunter Tyson?
Let's go to Pickett.
Okay. So, Pickett's your guy. And it's like you've purchased stock and the stock has taken a hit. But the question here is, like, I'm very optimistic about Pickett still. I feel like it's become a little bit of a battleground when it probably shouldn't be. There's a very good chance that Pickett's still an NBA player. What do you want to see from Jalen Pickett in Summer League to help him get a bigger role with the Nuggets?
Well, I think the number one thing, and Michael Malone referenced this today, talking to some people with the org over the last couple of weeks, playing with pace. He's a guy that has a very slow, methodical style of play to him that I like and I actually don't think needs to be altered that much, but Michael Malone does, and that's who he has to impress, right? Michael Malone does not like the style. He does not like booty ball. So he wants him to play with pace, and I think he has spent the last year trying to alter his game to be quicker. And that's not just getting the ball up the court quicker, but I think that's a huge part of it. But I think it's also just Pickett is a guy that likes to kind of like Jalen Brunson, ball in his hand, kind of takes his time getting to his spots, does what he does. And I think he has to alter his game now to just make quick decisions. If you're open, go. If not, make a move quickly, but to make your decisions quick. Don't use 5, 6, 7 possessions to try to collapse the defense. Just go quick. And I think even just watching the scrimmage with him today, and he was phenomenal, by the way. He had the ball in his hands to start every possession, set it up. They scored almost every single time down, the starting unit did. But I think the tempo with which he plays with in the half court and how quickly he gets the ball up the court is going to be the biggest thing that if he has a chance to win Michael Malone over, that would be the biggest thing.
It's a bummer because I just don't think that with a player like that in that position, you want to get him so far out of his comfort zone that he's going to feel a little overwhelmed and lost. Like you need to, with young players in that kind of position with so much pressure on them, I feel like it's better to kind of once you get them into a rotation spot, you can try and okay, let's ease them up a little bit and make him go faster. But trying to just outright change a guy, especially when he's been successful,
right.
That to me doesn't seem like the best approach. What do you think?
I mean, again, you have to do what is going to get you on the court. So for me, that's all this comes down to. And I said this last year. Part of why if you followed how I talked about Pickett last year, loved him before Summer League, loved him during Summer League, thought he was a good player, thought he was a good prospect. Before the season, I had softened, just I don't think he's going to play. And that's how it played out. I ended up seeing it, saying I'm just not sure he's ever going to get a chance. And then you get into the season and he never plays, even in the moments where Colin, kind of leapfrogged him on those, even though it didn't make sense and Colin is no longer on the team. But so for me, it's, sometimes you have to do what the coach wants. The coach is saying, yeah, I don't want that type of player. I want this type of player. And it's how much can you fit into that to what he is demanding of you? And first of all, coaches, it's not unfair of them to say, hey, but this is what I think is best for our team. And this is what I think we need. You're doing that with Julian a little bit. You're doing that with a lot of guys where you say, hey, we need this from you, not that. And they have to say, do they have it in them or not? So for me, that's it. I will say, because I see a lot of people saying handle the ball. Blind test here. Who do you think turned the ball over more in college, Trey Alexander or Jalen Pickett? I'll tell you who had the ball in their hands a lot more. So I just find this whole thing about Jalen Pickett can't dribble or he can't do this or that. I'm like, guys, has a great assist to turnover ratio, had the ball in his hands at all times, and had a great offense. Led a great offense despite being in this tiny school. So for me, he's a really good offensive player, but he is unique. He has to play fast.
I'm not sure that it's about the ability to dribble. It's more about that Andre Miller back it down approach, right? Like that kind of
people loved Andre Miller though.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, I guess the question is just like, that's a high bar, right? Like Andre Miller's
Andre Miller's one of the great. Yeah, he's the great of that style.
Yeah, and so like I think there's skepticism about the ability to do that. I would just say that like you don't know, like stylistically being similar doesn't mean that you're going to be the same level of player, but it also doesn't mean that you're not the same level. But it also doesn't mean that if you're not the same level of player, you shouldn't play that style.
Right,
like you should play the style that is best accustomed to you. I think for me, honestly, it's more about energy. And this is a stupid cliche thing, but I actually think it does matter. I think Strawther needs to be somebody that like shows leadership on the floor and is really engaged and really energetic. And I think he needs to be able to convey that when he's on the court, good things are going to happen and he's going to be responsible for those things, not just from a playmaking standpoint. It's not safe. Like, don't be a safe player and don't be a player that is like really competent. That's not going to get you on the floor for the Denver Nuggets. You need to be able to be a guy that like, because this is what they're looking for, I think, in the bench a lot is, are you going to be a guy that when they get on the floor, like the energy shifts? Because that's a role that they've really wanted from the bench unit throughout Michael Malone's tenure. And maybe that's a misguided way of thinking about it, but taking your kind of example of, well, this is how it is, then that's maybe the best thing that he can do is come out on the floor and show command of the floor and of the team and be the guy that's like picking guys up and in their faces and huddling guys together and being
leadership. I think that's a very fair one. I think it's honestly one of his biggest weaknesses is that your point guard needs to be charismatic. He needs to be a leader. He needs to kind of have the command of the team. And he's just such a quiet personality that I don't know that he necessarily has that.
Well, it's about Hunter Tyson. I really like, again, had a phenomenal summer league last year.
He was the standout today, by the way, in the scrimmage that we watched. He was the standout.
Tell me more.
Knocked down a couple threes that were just absolutely pure, grabbed a couple really tough rebounds, defended well, just looked, you know how it is when you can always tell the guys that are year two. Like he looked like the year two guy on the court today.
Nice. That's really good to hear. So what do you want to see from Hunter Tyson in the summer league run then?
Man, so this one is a little bit tougher because he did so much last year. That's like, what do you want to see? But I think it's number one, defense, because I think the real question, like if you look at what is Hunter Tyson's path to getting on the court, he's going to be a 3 or a 4, right? So he's going to be playing next to a Dario Saric in some capacity. We know he can shoot, and Denver needs shooting. So he has already an entry point of like, you have your skill. The question is, are you a weakness on defense? It's like, yeah, we have to put Hunter out there, and now we're not good on D. So if he can go out there and defend, rebound, and just make impacts on the game in those ways, I think it would go a long way to saying, why not Hunter Tyson? Why can't he be there? He's by far, like if you say the guys, DaRon Holmes, Vlatko Čančar, Zeke Naji, Hunter Tyson, who's the best shooter of that? Clearly it's Hunter Tyson.
Yeah.
So he has one thing. So it's, can you defend? And especially, can you defend size?
Before we hit break, I want to hit on Holmes.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't. I think for Hunter, I think it's more a matter of like the shooting has been there. So for him, I think it actually is more about like, can you do the other stuff?
Yeah, I agree.
You know, can like you be a part of, can you function as a part of an offense? Are you more than just a guy that's going to be on the perimeter? And like, I thought he played with a lot of energy and like it showed some on ball stuff last year in summer league, but that didn't really translate. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know what he needs to see that's show that would carry him into camp in a positive way. Holmes, I think is going to have a lot of eyes on him. And there's like, obviously a possibility that he could be really, dynamic. If there's something that you can kind of point to there, what do you want to see from Holmes?
From Holmes, I think number one, you want to see shooting because that's probably his most like he was a guy, by the way, today, Matt, that he didn't do anything wrong, but he also didn't stand out. Like he really was a guy that blended in. And I don't even know if that's a bad thing. I think like if he's going to be on the Nuggets actual roster, you don't want him to stand out. You want him to kind of fit in. Tonight, in the game today, he fit in. But I think defensive versatility would be the big thing for me. Like, again, you're talking about that backup power forward spot. Can he defend a lot of different types of guys? And what happens when he gets a guy on him that's 30 pounds heavier? How does he handle those? I'm curious to see that.
Rebounding.
Yeah.
Bigs in summer league are never going to have a good time because it's such a guard-dominated time because you just haven't played. These guys have practiced 5 times together and that's it. Honestly, he just needs to be able to show that the athleticism checks out, give Malone kind of a sense of what he can bring. And again, if you're a guy that just makes plays all over the floor, that's really going to carry through. Those are guys, I think I will say this, that when you're a guy that just like is always kind of involved, always making plays in summer league, doesn't have to be scoring, doesn't have to be like highlights, just always making plays. Those are guys that I've seen get very good chances to break into rotations in camp because they're able to exert their will on the game. And I think that really matters. Okay. Up next, Team USA faced off versus Canada. And we'll have some takeaways from Jamal Murray's performance, as well as what we think about Team USA and their chances as they go for gold. And maybe we'll hit on Team Serbia as well. We'll do that next here on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us, making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Wednesday night, recording this World's Finest for you on a Thursday. Adam, so Team USA played Canada in a friendly. I caught bits and pieces in between putting the kids to bed and other things. I wanted to ask you, so my takeaways are always like, why doesn't Tyrese Haliburton have the ball more? Just because I love Tyrese Haliburton. I love Tyrese Haliburton. I just love Tyrese Haliburton.
But on this roster?
Oh, no. He's not going to play. He's not going to play. He's not going to have the ball.
I was going to say, why didn't he have the ball more in that roster? There's so many guys. They passed to Tatum, and I'm like, what are you passing to him for?
Exactly. In that second unit, I'm like, I'm very much like, but like, you guys could just have Hallie handle it, and you would all get really good shots. And instead, it's like Ant and Jason Tatum taking contested fadeaways and making AD running up and down the lane and dunking on Dwight Powell. Do you want to start with Team USA, Jamal, or
we just talk about the game? I mean, here's the thing: is both of these teams assembled, I think, within the last week or so. I think Canada, after the game, it was funny because Steve, who was it that said, Canada's had a lot more practice than we have? And I was just thinking, like, what are you guys doing? Stop! Don't even say that. Don't even make it sound like an excuse. But both these teams look like teams that have had 3 or 4 practices total. And so it's very sloppy and underwhelming. And I was thinking about this with Team USA, because in the past, I've loved Team USA. Like before Jokic entered my life, I actually really loved Team USA. I went to Vegas to watch him. I get into watching it's like an all-star game where they actually care. But it's always the case where I feel like Team USA gets about 50% of their talent. And some of that's just the nature of not having a season to gel together. But tonight, it felt like Team USA got 10% of their talent. And they still dominated. That's how talented they are. But it was clunky.
It felt in the third quarter, it felt winnable for Canada.
Yeah, there was a moment too. There was like 2 or 3 plays where I was like, man, a stop and a score here, and it's going to be 4.
And they just couldn't get the shots to go down. And like Team USA is probably going to win. Team USA has the most talent. I think it was pretty incredible that the bench unit pulled away, that second unit pulled away, and that was why we got garbage time at the end. But for a while there, it really felt like, man, if LeBron's not on the floor, this team's kind of struggling. Embiid had a very bad night, which I was just
actually hilariously bad night. Did he foul out, or because they said he fouled out? So he did, right? He fouled out in the third quarter. Also, first play of the game tries to draw a foul on Powell. Like, what are you doing, man? It was ISO. Nobody was doubling. I actually thought he was laughably bad tonight. If you want to, like, have some shade or whatever, he was really bad.
Yeah, he was trying to draw fouls, which I'm just like, come on, guys.
I love that they don't call it, by the way. It's more physical in international competition, which I kind of like.
So Jamal goes 2 of 8 from the field. Doesn't make a lot of shots.
Yeah.
Didn't look explosive.
Very heavy legs tonight.
Did not look dynamic. And I'm not sure about the fit with Shea. I'm still kind of unsure about
it's not a natural fit.
I don't love that combo. And like, look, a lot of that is also like Shea has run a bazillion pick and roll, targeted defender, go to work, mid-range, like with spacers all around him. It's just like a different kind of setup, and maybe they'll figure it out. Not probably what you in particular probably wanted to see from Jamal, given how the season ended.
I said this over on DNVR today. Like I'm done beating up on Jamal. Like I'll analyze his game, but I'm done with it. Like I think he's taken a lot over the last 2 months, from Nuggets fans. And I think it's fair, by the way. I think it's fair. Do too. Yep. But it can become too much. Like you can start to it almost becomes like a meme where it's like, that's what we do. We rag on Jamal. And it's like, no, we can't do that. Tonight, he did look like he had heavy legs, and he had the Drew Holiday assignment tonight, which is maybe the toughest assignment in all of basketball. And Drew was all over him, and I think he just kind of faded into the game. But the one thing you hope to see from Jamal ever is just quickness, and he didn't really have any quickness tonight. And as a result, he didn't really have an impact on the game.
Yeah, Santiago says it's an off-season friendly. Everyone looked out of shape.
I do agree with that. Not everyone, but I do agree with that. That's part of it. That's part of why you don't want to bang them over the head too much. This looked like a preseason game.
LeBron somehow doesn't. How?
But
how
no,
at 40?
no.
How?
Because that's why he's playing at 40. Like, again, this is part of the story. Like, some guys are just in shape all year round. But to be fair, a lot of the guys, more than typical, looked like they had heavy legs tonight. Drew Holiday didn't. I know he just got done 2 weeks ago, but he was quick.
Yeah. Can I give you my this is a very me take. My big takeaway from watching this game was I've said 4 or 5 times, man, the Nuggets could use Kelly Olynyk. Just like 4 or 5 times.
You would win.
Like quick cuts under the basket.
He's good, man. Kelly Olynyk is a good player.
He's got such good hands, Adam.
He's smart.
He's got such good hands.
Yeah.
He's never where he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It pains me that he will never be the backup for Nikola Jokic the way that he should be.
Dario Saric has a lot of this in his game, though, in my opinion. Dario's like really smart too. He's a smart, good passer.
Right. It's Saric.
Oh yeah, Saric. I know. Saric. Which is funny. He's been in the league for a while. I've never heard anybody say that.
Never heard anybody call him Saric.
Like, what are you doing?
Everyone's called him Sarge. So you got to look at Team USA.
I think they look dominant. I'm not going to lie. Usually Team USA has a weakness. Their only weakness this year to me is hubris and chemistry. Usually it's like they're a great team, the unbelievable athleticism and defense. Do they have enough shooting? This team has so much shooting, so much defense, so much size, so much athleticism, so much ball handling. I don't think they have an X's and O's weakness. That what they have is, can the team throw them off with the zone? Do they know who their go-to guys are? Those are important questions, but unfortunately, you're not going to just like dare them to shoot.
Yeah, and I think I had a big conversation today about Team USA and how good is it? And I was kind of like, look, I think if everybody was like super engaged on it, it feels with the amount of media around them, it's just kind of hard for me not to feel like this is like an Instagram influencer video. That's how it always kind of feels to me. It feels very branded.
That's why I say hubris. Hubris is the thing that could take them down. Like, we'll see if it happens.
But also, like, they're so much better than they're just so good.
So good.
They're so good.
How much here's the thing. They are definitely the best team.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of their potential do they need to reach in order to win this? And it's probably, and I'm not trying to be like, I know some people are being rubbed the wrong way by this. I think it's like 50%, 60%. Mm-hmm. It's not that high.
I think 70. I think that they'll catch a game from Serbia, Australia, Canada, Germany. That will be.
There's enough good teams that they actually will have to play. I think a lot of good games.
Yeah. That's the thing. Is like, if you have a game, I think and maybe that's the thing is like you put it well by like at 50%. If you put in like a 40% game, like these teams can send you home. Like Germany's good enough to send you home.
Yeah.
The standard for USA has to be gold. The expectation for Canada really needs to be silver. They've been working towards this team for so long, and they finally have everyone there.
You know what, though? That's almost the more interesting question to me. Like, Canada, to me, does not look like – the U.S. looks like a lock to take gold, and if they don't, it's a huge disappointment. Canada, right. I don't think it would be a huge disappointment to take bronze or fourth or something. I think that they probably have the talent to be in that tier for sure, but – I mean, I'm not convinced that they're better than France and Serbia. And, those teams to me are going to be right there in their tier, I think.
Okay. What's the expectation for you as a Serbian appreciator?
Yeah. I got to see him play, though. I mean, I still got to see him play.
What do you think the expectation should be for Team Serbia with Jokic playing?
Expectation, get out of group play. And then it depends on your draw, right? Like, honestly, like you can get a really tough first draw in that elimination round, but I think that for them, it's a medal. And I've talked to enough Serbs to know that that's really it. Like, you want gold, you want to win, you want this, but it's like, if you get a medal, that's how you remember these things. You stack up medals. Did you get a medal that year?
I actually think Germany should have a pretty high bar here.
I agree.
I think, and they're not in that group of death. So
right.
They're in a better spot to kind of not have to exert so much stress going in. Look, I'm not the international basketball guy, and I'm like getting a little excited. Like
It's
looking at,
legit,
like,
man. Every tournament it gets more legit. And this
dude,
one I'm looking at and you're like, man.
you know
there's
what
some
did it
good
for me? It
players.
was two things. It was Giannis crying over on the sideline.
Who, by the way, is going to be carrying the first Black Greek person to ever carry the Greek flag at the Olympics, which is a big deal.
That's so
kind of
cool.
cool. This is what
great.
I mean. Like, these things actually are cool because they mean something. I'm so sick of how little the NBA means anything to anybody. That's like, this is part of why I'm pushed to the international basketball is 1 out of every 30 NBA games matters. And like these ones, guys are crying on the side. So yeah.
The other one for me was Jose Alvarado and Carlos Arroyo. That was so cool. Hey, I want to hit you before we get out of here. So there's details that came out about the new NBA TV deal and about kind of what we're going to see. And so I haven't
seen them.
I haven't prepped you on this. So Amazon's going to have the in-season tournament, which I think is a good idea because that way, like, they can do some cool stuff with their technology of like, let's do a quad box. Let's like bounce around and actually like show all these types of things for sickos like me.
We're going to make the IST even more.
Stop it. The IST rule.
Now you can vote on the reviews. If you think it's a foul or not, you can just vote on it.
The IST rule, the Nuggets winning the IST would be a good thing this year. It'd be a good sign. So NBC will have Tuesdays, and then they're going to do like after football night in America ends, they're going to have a Sunday game, and ESPN's going to have a Sunday game as well. And Amazon, after Thursday night football, NBA takes that slot. So that's similar to Turner. Oh. Amazon kind of becomes the Turner in this new arrangement. And then NBC is kind of like the one that's a little bit new and different. Wow. I'm just really excited. But the biggest reason I'm excited is ESPN has 20 fewer games, which is very exciting.
Let's say less. That's all I needed to hear. I'm in.
And so I'm just really excited for these new takes because I do think that Amazon and NBC will come in with a better understanding and appreciation for like how to do this, because Turner was so anchored to Inside that it was like, well, we just have Inside. And so everything is just like built around Inside. But the problem is like Inside's become such like a parody of itself with the guys playing who we play for and everything. And they're not as bad as ESPN that like actively.
I think Inside the NBA is the GOAT show. I still love it.
So. I totally respect that. Look, for me, it's pre-Shaq. That's it for me. It's like before Shaq, I thought it was elite. Shaq, like, it just became more goofy and fun and like that's cool, but I really liked it before. Yeah. And ESPN obviously is just always kind of pushing their product and their personalities and things like this. And I feel like NBC in particular has a real opportunity here to like bring back a level of gravitas to these games that I'm very excited about, because I will say this for NBC sports coverage. They do sports seriously. Like they are not like they are like, this is a very big deal. We are like, this is
it feels big. And this is the problem with ESPN and everything else is it doesn't feel big. I think they're going to make it feel big. And that's the NBA needs to feel big again. Yes. The finals felt so small. It felt like such a little weird thing. Can I make one comment here? And this is just a little thing for me. Kevin Patterson in the chat says, basketball as a world sport was David Stern's vision. Yes and no. I do want to say it was part of his vision, and he did an awful lot to grow the game internationally. But one thing that I always see people say is that he's the reason for the dream team. It's not true. It was the Serb, Boris Stankovic, who for years was lobbying to get NBA players to be allowed to play in the Olympics and was only succeeded after the U.S. lost in 1988, finally was able to convince David Stern to allow them to play. And I just give a shout out because, as I highlighted in 100 visible threads, the Serbs, when they made basketball one of the national pastimes of Serbia, part of what they did was take the game to other countries in Europe and send their guys to the U.S. and like almost like forcibly say, Matt, you're going on assignment. You're going to go to the University of Kentucky as an assistant and learn from them and then bring back what you learn. And so David Stern had a big hand in that, and the NBA had a big hand of it. But there was a lot of people that wanted the global game to happen. And it wasn't until the power and weight of the U.S. kind of got thrown behind them that it was able to grow. But there were a lot of people that were trying to make that happen. And it wasn't until the U.S. finally lost that they said, okay, it's time.
It's been your national basketball history lesson with Adam Mares. All right, that's going to do it for World's Finest. Thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate you guys being with us. Check out Swipe It tomorrow and then Swipe and Gripe on Friday, and then we'll get you into the weekend. We'll talk Summer League. We'll talk Olympics. We'll talk everything offseason and maybe we'll talk about Russell Westbrook landing as a Nugget eventually too. We'll talk about all that.
I think we'll talk about it every show this summer until it's announced that it's not happening in September.
Not happening, and then he signs for somebody else. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.